Folks, ruining your financial future for what? I'll get into that and then the latest home prices and insights for York Region for week ending May the 7th, 2025. A while back, I got a phone call from somebody who saw one of our sold signs in his neighborhood and said, Santo, I saw that you sold the property down the street pretty quick. I need some help. I think I need to sell my home real quick. So I met up with the person and he's talking to me about their situation. He was in some serious financial trouble. He's missed one payment already, one mortgage payment. He's probably going to be missing the next mortgage payment. But he's also telling me that his brother, who used to live in Canada, went back to their home country and in 6 months was moving back to Canada and wanted to buy his house. He says that I'm looking to keep my home so I could sell it to my brother when he comes. And I said, listen, I understand you want to keep your home to sell it to your brother, but if you can't make your mortgage payments, you're going to lose your home. And so this was the conversation that he was planning to sell the home to the brother, but he's in serious financial problems right now. So I said, look, how confident are you that your brother's going to buy your home in 6 months? And he says, oh, very confident. We talked about this many times now. And I go, okay, so then why not just ask your brother for money? He's got to have money if he's planning to buy your home. Ask him for money now to keep your mortgage payments current so you don't lose your home. And then eventually, when he buys it in approximately 6 months, whatever he's lent you, you work that out in the purchase price. He thought it was a good idea. I thought, brilliant, problem solved. This guy's not going to lose his home, and we're done. So I left there. We, exchanged pleasantries, and I left thinking I solved this problem for him. He called me about 4 or 5 days later and says, my brother does not want to give me any money now up front, but he says when he comes here in 6 months, he'll deal with everything then. He'll buy my house. I said, listen, I understand what you're telling me, but do you have a way of making your mortgage payments until your brother shows up? He says, no. I go, then, listen, either you sell your home, because if you can't come up with the money, either you sell your home and sort yourself out, or that decision will be made for you. Either you decide or your lender will decide that for you. And whatever you're trying to do to your brother, for your brother, I don't know, to help your brother, whatever the case is that you're holding his home so your brother can buy it, listen, there's not going to be a home left for your brother to buy. And besides, your brother can buy any other home. There's lots of properties for sale. This is the market that we're in right now. And so he thought about it, and we ended up putting the home on the market, and we ended up selling it. Months went by, and he called me, and we were chatting and just, talking about how things were. And he said that selling the home and acting in the best interest of his own family and not his brother. And he loves his brother. This is not a conversation of him being against his brother. But he said, acting in my family's best interest was the smartest thing that he did. He was happy he sold the home. And on top of that, things had changed with the brother. He was no longer going to be moving back to Canada. So imagine if this guy would have somehow, some way waited, how much exponentially more his financial situation, exponentially more serious his financial situation would have become. I'm telling this because many times we're faced with situations where we want to help, we want to do favors or help out other family or other people, friends. Most people will act in their best interest. And that's not to say they're going against somebody else, But you really also got to think about what's best for you and your family. This guy could have financially screwed his family up for years to come if he waited for the brother who promised to come. But yet the brother did not want to send money up front to help him. I think he made the right choice in selling his home. He feels today so much better that he did that. And that's what I want to leave you with. I can't stress enough that you should do what's best for you and your family, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be left with the consequences of your decisions. If you think this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. If you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. And if you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. Below this video in the description is a link to my calendar, or you can go straight to tsre.ca. It'll take you right to the calendar. Pick a date and time that suits you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. Now, let's get into the numbers. Folks, at the end of the show, there'll be a link on the screen to a property we have listed in Woodbridge. It's in a great part of Woodbridge. It's a detached property, 4 bedrooms. The home needs some TLC, but it'll make a great home for a lucky family. Check out the link at the end of the video. Here we go. We're going to get started with York Region. Before I get into my weekly breakdown, what I'm showing here is monthly data spanning back several years, just to give a different perspective on what's happening with trends and prices and sales. So this is for all of York Region, not just Vaughan, Richmond Hill, and Markham. So all of York Region for detached properties only. For week ending April 25th, 440 detached properties were sold. If we look at April 2024, well, sales are far fewer sales this year than 625 sold last year. The prior year, 2023, 744, 670, April 2022. But if you go to April 2021, 1,446 detached properties were sold. If you look at March 2021, 1,007, excuse me, I had to cough when I see the number. 1,702 were sold. Big difference from where we are today. 440 sold in a month. Detached properties only I'm talking about here. Let's look at average sold price. For month ending April 2025, the average sold price of a detached property in all York Region averages out to $1,616,000, which is 5% lower than where the average price was in 2024, 4.7% lower than 2023, 8% lower than 2022. Now, April 2022 is just below peak pricing, so we're, I'm going to say only 8% lower than peak pricing. I don't want to, well, if we look at 2021, actually, we are 4% higher than where prices were in 2021. I don't want to compare to 2020. That was the first full month after we were all told to stay home. Remember, middle of March, everybody stay home? Well, April was just a disaster when it came to any kind of data. But if we go back to 2019, our current average price of $1,616,000 is 44.7% higher. Basically 45% higher than where the average sold prices were in 2019. That's detached, broken down by month, going back to 2019. Here's our regular programming. Broken down by week for week ending May the 7th. For detached properties only, I'm going to be focused on Vaughan, Richmond Hill, and Markham data. We're going to start off with Vaughan. For week ending May the 7th, 32 detached properties were sold. 6 of those sold at $2 million or more. I've got a question mark here because I'm trying to spot out trends for you and share them with you. Look, 32 is higher than what we've seen this whole year so far, but does that mean sales are trending upwards? It's really tough to say which way sales are going right now. And judging by kind of the history this year, we're at 32 this week. Who knows what next week? It could be 20, 26. We don't know based on what we've been seeing so far this year. Average sold price is $1,646,000. It's also tricky to say which way prices are going. Let me look at the other charts and let's see what we could pick out a trend. But compared to last year, 1,646 is 5% lower year over year. The median price of 1,510,000 is 12% lower. The dotted line, that's a 4-week moving average. If we go back to basically the end of February, early March, both average and median are trending upwards, but now they're turning the other way. So really, that's the trend. Up and now starting to come down. 32 were sold, same sales we did this time a year ago. 22% sold at list price or more. Listings way up there at 102 detached properties listed for sale. 102. If I go back 3 months, it's one higher than our 2 previous weeks that we've had. So 102 is quite a lot. Active listings is increasing. Months of inventory, because of the sales of 32 jumping up, months of inventory came down a bit to 4.1 months of inventory, right in the middle of what we would consider a balanced market. That's Vaughan, detached properties. Let's look at Richmond Hill. 17 detached properties were sold. 4 sold at $2 million or more. For 4 weeks in a row, there's been 4 selling at $2 million or more. Average sold price, it's like a roller coaster, these peaks and valleys when it comes to Richmond Hill. $1,721,000 is the average sold price. I'm not going to say which way prices are trending. We have too few sales to really get an accurate reading on that. Compared to last year, 1,721 is 16% lower. The median price of 1,620 is 17% lower than where prices were a year ago. 17 were sold. None of those sold at list price or more. 95 were listed, which is in 3 months, the most listings we've seen in a week. It's actually the most listings we've seen in a week in a long time. Active listings trending upwards, and months of inventory a little higher than the previous week. We're now at 7.4 months of inventory. So that was Vaughan. This is Richmond Hill. Let's talk about Markham. For week ending May the 7th, 25 detached properties were sold. 4 of those were at $2 million or more. Average sold price for the last 5-6 weeks trending down. We're now at $1,569,000. 1,569 is 18% lower year over year. The median price of 1.5 million is 24% lower year over year. Average price and median price, and right now I'm only looking at the dotted line, looks kind of flat. 25 were sold, we said. Half of those, a little more than half, 52% sold at list price or more. 110 were listed. This is a theme we're seeing this week across the GTA. Listings are way up versus the previous few months. So 110 were listed. Active listings climbed up. It's now been flat for a few weeks, but still, versus, I'm going to go back, if 25 are being sold, but we have 444 available for sale, not a lot of properties are getting sold. Months of inventory, in the middle of a balanced market, sitting at 4.1 months of inventory. Here's a summary of months of inventory. In most cases, you're going to experience a balanced market. Not so much for condos, and maybe not so much in Richmond Hill, but overall, a balanced market when it comes to detached properties in York Region. Thanks for watching. Go Leafs go. Now check out the Woodbridge listing with the link on the screen.